We've been talking about with Flow Sports, with everything going on there at Vado over in Arizona with the Wild West Shootout. And this is a name that is going to be very familiar to many of you folks if you follow that racetrack, if you follow that event. Man, we are super excited. We welcome to the Revved Up Sports Show. It is our friend, Christy Barnett. How we doing, ma'am?
Doing great. How y'all doing?
We are doing awesome. How's the weather over there, Miss Christy?
You know, it's pretty clear right now, but the temperature's dropped a bunch. I think it's going to snow.
Oh,
nice. I love it. Christy, thank you for taking the time after a busy weekend happening out there. Before we dive into everything that you have done, because a lot of this, I want to talk about you because you are so accomplished. Let's talk about that Vado racetrack out there. Kind of give me some history on that, how it came about. A lot of people have a really special place for that racetrack.
Yeah, it came about when it was about a year or two before COVID, and Royal had a racetrack in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and then we had one here in El Paso, and he was partners with us in the one in El Paso, and then COVID came along, and that just everything just sort of slowed down, and the city out here in El Paso started giving us a hard time about putting in new septic systems and all that stuff for the neighborhood. So we just sold that racetrack, and then Royal was at the fairgrounds in Las Cruces, and they didn't really want the racetrack anymore, so they shut that down. So he built this brand new track out here between El Paso and Las Cruces.
That's awesome.
And it's absolutely first class. I mean, it's like a NASCAR track. He spent a bunch of money on it, and it is state of the art, first class.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've driven by there before. I haven't got to go to a race there, but even from I-10, that place looks like a show palace for sure. And then some of the different videos we've seen on social media with some of the press boxes and some of the different stuff. So talk about the racing over there. There for a long time, El Paso had some really underrated racing. I guess because it's so far out from the mainstream, racing in Central Texas and the Valley and, even the Houston and Corpus areas. Talk about that racing over there for a number of years. There's got to be a lot of really competitive guys and gals like yourself that came from that general area.
Yeah, it's really funny because there used to be, we could race 3 or 4 nights a week in the area, and then everything just sort of went away. But there's always been a lot of talent come out of these two cities right here, Las Cruces and El Paso. And we had to always travel to other places to, get to go to bigger races. And it's just amazing the kind of competition that comes out of here. I mean, there's some really good drivers that's come out of this part of the country. And, like Stormy Scott and Johnny Scott. And they started out here at Las Cruces. They were little go-kart drivers. And, and then you have just up the road here, which is Albuquerque. That's where Josh Kane and Rob Mosley come from. And I mean, in this whole area, just within 175 miles, there's a bunch of good drivers that's come out of here. And over the last 50 years, I can't even remember. My brain doesn't work good anymore, but there's a lot of good ones that's come out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Christy, mentioning that, I mean, just for folks geographically, Bobby and I, we're in Central Texas. He's down in the southern part, closer to the San Marcos part. I'm closer to Austin, a little north right there. Talk about the geographical part from El Paso to Vado. What is that mileage wise? Because I know for me, El Paso's a hell of a long way. How about that difference right there for you to go to Vado?
Well, we're right on the edge of Texas and New Mexico. So it's, for us now, Las Cruces used to be 60 miles to the racetrack.
Oh, shit.
Vado is directly in between. So it's like 30 miles from our store in El Paso.
I love that.
It's closer, and it's right on I-10. It's the most fabulous location you can't even imagine. It's just right on I-10 physically.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christy, talk about this Wild West deal coming out. I always find it unique and pretty awesome, especially with the event of streaming services now, that you get a chance to see a racetrack get showcased. We see it with Vado, with the Wild West stuff. We see it during Speed Weeks with New Smyrna and some of the other tracks that have great history. Obviously, Vado it pulls from all the generations of history with Las Cruces and El Paso. But how cool is it to have that event be showcased now for a national audience to see? Like you said, you get noticed. You know, it's those 15-year overnight sensations. You just have somebody watching, and all of a sudden, here comes this new group of fans, a new group of drivers that out of the blue, they've been running there forever, and now all of a sudden they're bona fide superstars thanks to a streaming service.
Right, that's exactly right. And it's funny how, you know, how you can be known or not known, and you're known in the racing community, but in the regular public eye, because nobody really knows about it. This place is so it's so new and modern, and just having the caliber of the race car drivers that come in for this Wild West Shootout's unbelievable. And they're now, this is they got race of the year in the late models twice for the race of the year. And I think they're in the running already, because the last 2 nights it's been awesome barn burners.
Oh man,
with those late models, you know. And the other classes, the A mods and the X mods, they've been doing the same thing. It's been like right down to the wire.
How great is that? I mean, because I think that this race has always been something really, really special. But now, like Bobby was talking about, Christy, with the enhanced eyes on it, you know, with flow and the different stuff. How great is that to be like kind of you were on the beginning stages of all this, to see this thing blow up, and you're still out there as competitive as hell. How great is that for you as kind of one of the pioneers to watch this thing just blow itself up and really be a really badass race in this country?
Well, I think it's great. I mean, we had that racetrack, and we know what it's like to have a racetrack, but this is just it's another level. It's I mean, it's like literally, it's probably, you know, akin to like if you go to the Cowboy Stadium in Arlington. You know, it's I mean, that's supposed to be the gym of the gyms right there, from what I understand. And this one here, I think it's rated like one of the top like 4 in the nation for dirt tracks. And I've raced in a lot of places. I've raced all over the country, and I mean, it's, you know, Vegas is nice, you know, that kind of thing. And this place is nice. It's right out in the middle of the desert, and you don't expect to see something like that. But I mean, Rawls just done a fabulous job with it. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about your racing stuff right now. Obviously, you've raced a lot of different stuff, from super trucks, X mods, A mods. Some of those are different terminology than what we're used to on our side. Like, you know, the difference between like an X mod and an A mod. Which class are you specifically more fun running in, and which one? And describe it for us that need a geographical lessons on the name of a racing class.
Well, for me, I don't care if it's a wagon. I'll drive anything. I've driven late models. I've driven stock cars. I've driven them all. But right now, I'm running those 3 classes, and everyone knows what the A mod is, and it's that open wheel kind of strange looking vehicle. And the B mod is the exact same thing, except for it's a clamped up rear suspension with a limited motor. And some of the sanctioning bodies, depends on what you run. They make you run a 2-barrel carburetor or a 4-barrel carburetor with certain kind of motor packages, but they're limited motors and they're clamped up rear ends. So it's not a 4-link suspension like the A mod. A mod is based off more like a late model suspension.
Yeah. And
they're fast though. They're pretty quick. They're almost as fast as the A mods. And then the trucks they're basically identical to what the Craftsman trucks are, except for they run on dirt. And then they're limited to like a 360 cubic inch motor, and they're on the same kind of American racers like the modified. So they're just little 8-inch tires, and you run 4-barrel carburetors. But those little dudes will get around the track too. They're fun to drive.
Yeah, I've always said I love the fact when you get a big horsepower package like that with a little bitty tire, that really makes it sweet when that starts happening. Christy, I mean, with your career, I mean, it has been so many. I saw the list of tracks, and of course here in Texas, just all across everything that you have done. But I really want to ask you and hone into one of the things that as I've been, you know, working to talk to you, tell me about this Bonneville Salt Flats thing. When you start hearing that, I correlate that with names that are, you know, the names are infamous and famous that have done this. Tell me a little bit about that. That had to be really, really cool. And you're the swiftest lady that has ever done that.
Yeah, that was interesting. There was a guy here in El Paso that he had a car collection, and he had like he had Jeff Gordon's car and one of Ernie Irvin's and John Force. He had all these different cars that he had in his museum, and he was always big time into racing. And he had a NASCAR that he had a buddy that had a Busch team, and they had a car that they wanted to field at the Indianapolis 500. I mean, at the Brickyard 500. So they got together and they hired. The first year they had Jeff Bodine drive it.
Bodine.
And all they wanted to do was qualify. But what they did was they brought the car to El Paso, and then they graphicked it up with sponsors and everything. And then they had people that wanted to donate like $10. They could sign the car, and it was going to be fielded at the Brickyard 400. So they raised a lot of money for sponsorships and stuff, doing it like that. And the first year, the motor blew up. Yeah. So Bodine didn't qualify. So the second year they had Chad Chaffin. I don't know if you remember him from the trucks, but yeah, he came down. They did the same thing. Well, he actually qualified, and he made the Brickyard 400. And so then the next year after that, they decided that they didn't want to do it anymore. They wanted to do something different. So I get this call one day out of the clear blue sky, and they say, "We want you to drive this car at the Bonneville Salt Flats and try to set the land speed record."
Holy shit.
I was like, "What?" I was like, "What do you?" I said, I turn left. I don't go straight, and I said, "Besides that, why don't you get, like Ashley Force or somebody that goes 300 miles an hour all the time to do it?" And they said, "No, we want it to be a local person, and we want it to be female, and you're the only one that we want to do it. And so will you do it?" So I thought, okay, I'll do it. So we got the car down here, and it ended up not being the actual car that they drove at the Brickyard 400, which I didn't know because they told me it was going to be that.
Of course.
But yeah, it was like a display car. It was one of AJ Foyt's display cars, and it hadn't even been started in 12 years or something like that. But anyway, we worked on it. We had different events around town. They called it Race El Paso, and the entire city got behind it, and people paid to have their names on the cars. If you look at the pictures, do you see all the decals and everything? Those are all sponsors. Yeah. And all the money that we raised we did it for a child literacy charity called Avance. So all the proceeds went to them, and they got a grant and it got matched. So they got a bunch of money. And so we go out there, and I'm like, I thought, man, when I got out there, I thought to myself, you must be nuts. I mean, you've never gone that fast before. You don't know what you're doing. You have to go through all this rigmarole to do it. And I had my service rep from Harley Davidson was in love with the Bonneville Salt Flats, and he had been since he was 5 years old, and he was about 65 or 70, and he wanted to go. And he knew everything about it, so he could tell us what kind of gears to run and do all that. So we went out there, and we didn't even know. Well, when we left, we didn't even think we were going to make it because it had the wrong size push rods in the motor, and it had lots of problems, let me tell you. And we got out there, and it had a Detroit locker rear end in it.
Oh shit!
Which was not conducive to that.
Yeah,
and
right.
I kept telling, I kept saying, man, this thing is squirrely. You can't, it wants to turn left. And the rear end was cambered. It was still set up to turn left from whenever it was raced. Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting. And they make you go do driver's license things. And you have to go through these tests. And then the last driver's license thing, you have to pull a parachute, which I was like, oh my God, what is this? Yeah. Well, that actually it was fun. It ended up being my friend. That was fun doing that parachute thing, but they're very serious at Bonneville. Have you ever seen a movie called The Fastest Indian?
I have not.
You have got to rent that movie. That's the best movie ever made.
Yeah.
It's Anthony Hopkins, and it's about the Bonneville Salt Flats, and it's a true story about a guy that set a world record. And Bonneville is exactly like that. But anyway, we did it, and I spun at 200 miles an hour, and and then went out there and did it again, and I was on a world record run. I would have had it, but right kind of towards the end of the run, I saw the quarter panel coming around.
Oh.
And I thought, oh man, you can't just dump the gas because you're going to spin. So I just eased out of it, and I lost 10 or 12 miles an hour right there. And otherwise I would have had the world record right then. But I lost all that mile per hour, and I came through the trap at 208. But I still got the fastest woman in the NASCAR. And the record that was set, that record is by a professional record setter that's sponsored by corporate sponsors. And the car that he drove was not NASCAR legal. It was all aero taped up, dynamic, and it was on rib tires. I had the stock NASCAR slicks on mine. And I mean, it wasn't apples to apples at all. So as far as I'm concerned, I got a new world record, because it wasn't that easy. People think that's easy, but try it on those slick tires on wet salt.
And I have to ask you, I mean, is that the highlight of your career? I mean, with all the dirt mod wins, I mean, you've won 10K. I mean, you've done all these different things. And what I really respect and love about you is that you've done all these things. When they say the lady that has won $10,000, I don't give a shit. You have won $10,000 for a dirt modified race. I don't care if you're man, woman, dog, child, cat. I mean, that is something that not everybody gets to do. Is that with the soft flats, is that the highlight for you? Because I can't imagine strapping into something, especially on the shoes that you're talking about, and just going only 208 miles an hour.
Well, I have stories. I have stories that nobody else has.
Oh.
And and it was once in a lifetime opportunity. And I have a picture. I know I have to be the only person on the face of the earth that has a picture of a NASCAR with a parachute out behind it.
Oh my God.
I literally have that picture, and it's me, and it's like, I lived it. I lived that whole thing, and it was worth it. I mean, and they called me and they asked me to do it the next year, and I told them, well, you'd have to get another car because I ain't doing that one again.
Yeah,
but so I didn't do it. Oh, and I was going to go make another run. At the end, we were having trouble making the thing run. It wouldn't go over 7,500, and it ended up being the air cleaner was pressing down on the venturis on the carburetor, so it wasn't getting enough air. But anyway, I sent another guy out just to try to air it out to see, we could try to figure out what was wrong with it. And when he went out, he blew the windshield. The windshield blew out of the car, and he spun around and he almost flipped. And anyway, it blew the windshield out, and we didn't have another windshield, so we didn't get to do anymore. I didn't get to do it anymore. Wow. But
amazing.
Yeah, it's I've been so blessed. I've had a lifetime and a career that I could write a book. My husband and I have done so much.
Yeah.
My husband is racing 3 classes out here, and in July he'll be 90 years old.
90?
90.
What?
Wow.
And he races X mods. He races X mods, trucks, and stock cars, and he can still win. Wow. He's not your normal 90-year-old guy.
Amazing. Amazing. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, we've been married for 45 years, and we've been racing for 45 years together.
I love it.
And we'll just do it till the day we die, probably.
Absolutely.
So, Christy, last week on our show, we had a 14-year-old girl that was racing, a young lady, girl, whatever, to be proper about it, right? So she was running the Tulsa Shootout for the very first time. And what we had mentioned to her is that, back, Rodney and I are old enough to know, back, you very rarely had, women racers there racing with you, whether it be on a national level or a local level. Now, modern day, move forward to today, you've got, potentially one young lady or one female per class, sometimes 2, depending on what track you're at and what it is. Were you having any pushback on that when you first started? Is it something that you've noticed over the years being somewhat easier for the new group of young ladies to come in and race?
There was absolutely zero when I started, not in the dirt track racing anyway. And I raced flat track 3-wheelers, and I raced and those were at 100 miles an hour. And I drag raced Harleys, and I did motocross racing and all that. And when I was the only one for many, many, many years. And I think the female population back then were thinking they couldn't do it or something. I don't know, but I've always been the kind of person that tells her, but do what you want to do, just do it. And when they start out little kids, there's a bunch of them now that were just little kids when I started, and they race now, and it's because I helped them get over the fear of doing it.
Yeah.
And now it is, like you said, they're everywhere now. I mean, you couldn't count 5 on your hand in the nation when I started. And like I raced in Mexico for 11 years, and there was no female racers. And I mean, you should have seen. I mean, they treated me like I was the president of the country.
I bet. And
they still do. They still do. They come over here now, and they come over to Vado now and watch, and they all these people, oh, you remember me? I was 5 years old, or I was 3 years old. It's like, no, I don't remember.
La Chica. But, you're La Chica.
But they're still fans. They're fans for life,
Wow. That is amazing. And Christy, how great is it for you, the fact that this amazing career that you've had over 40 years of doing this and every different discipline that you can think of? I mean, like you're talking about, I didn't know about the motocross part. Let me ask you about that. So when, cause we lean heavily on motocross around here. Motocross, when you jump over to racing dirt or pavement or whatever, when it comes to car racing, motocross or dirt bikes, whatever. That right there was the first. That's the first extreme sport. I don't think people realize how hard that is.
Well, as a rule, if you interviewed a bunch of really good race car drivers, I guarantee you, 95% of them came from a dirt, like some kind of a motorcycle racing background. Yeah. Motorcycle racers just make good car racers. I don't know what it is, but that's just the way it is. And I mean, I like flat track and you remember the 3-wheelers, right?
Absolutely.
They banned them from the, I mean, I was racing those 100 miles an hour on flat tracks. And people ask me to this day, well, weren't you afraid to, aren't you afraid of driving a car? And I'm like, are you crazy? After I raced a 3-wheeler? That's like nothing. I mean, you have seatbelts. Yeah. You have a cage. You have all that kind of stuff. No, it's like, no, it's not scary at all. And it's really progressed. I mean, everything has just progressed, and I'm so happy that, like you were talking about the females and stuff. I'm so happy there's a bunch of them now, because there wasn't before, and they're younger and younger, and there's some really good ones coming up through the ranks now, and I'm really glad to see that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, sorry. I was actually doing reconnaissance work on the show. I did want something really cool, and I Googled you, Christy, and I got to say, it's pretty awesome. All the cars you raced, all the stuff that it shows, that's pretty cool. When you Google yourself for lots of good things. But so what, when it comes to the shootout, as any racer knows, they don't try to go finish second. Is that your goal? Is you just dominate all week when it comes to the shootout and at the home track, or is it? Do you get? Are you experienced enough where you're like, well, sometimes a good night's a top 3 because the track may not come to us? I mean, what's your gut telling you for these next couple of races coming up there at Vado?
Well, first of all, you got to finish, and that's hard to do sometimes. Based on like the weather, because of the track conditions or the cars, it's always a 50% chance that you're not going to finish the race because of something. Like last night, I won the B main. I mean, in the X month, I was winning the B main with like 3 laps to go, and I was winning it. I mean, it was won, right? Mm-hmm. And they threw a yellow flag, and under the yellow flag, my motor blew up. Oh shit! So it was a bummer, because I want to shoot the guns at the Wild West Shootout, and I know I can get I've had things happen. I've been in a position where I had an A-mod race one time, and it was just circumstance that cost me the race. And I want to shoot the guns, Yeah. My whole goal in life is to win. I don't want to be second, but I've done it so long now. It's like water off a duck's back. It either happens or it doesn't happen, and I'm not going to lose any sleep, but I want to do good.
Yeah.
And with the caliber of drivers that come to this race, it's hard to even get into the show. Those B mains are like features, I mean, it's hard to even make the show, and much less win. But I think I stand about as good a chance as anybody else.
I think you do too. And I mean, how great is that for you? Because after all the years, I like to call it tenured. I don't like to say veteran. I don't like to like myself. I race a lot of years. I don't race very often anymore. I'm more focused on this and other stuff. I'm tenured in racing. So how great for you that when you with this event, I mean, that you get out there, because like you said, a B main, whatever, that is an A main at every dadgum racetrack around the country, that you still get out there with all the young talent. And I don't care, again, like I said, male, female, that you get out there and you're still beating them. How gratifying for you, Miss Christy, that you can still do that right now.
I'm just blessed that I can do it, and it's just fun. I mean, I have so much fun doing it. That's why I said I don't care if it's a wagon that I drive. I mean, the whole experience of it, and I'm just an extremely competitive person, and I'm not going to give it up. It's just like my husband. He's the same way. I mean, and I'm not as old as he is, but I'm not no spring chicken either, and I don't let that get in my way, So, and it's funny racing against young kids. It really, I mean, there's one that was there last night that he's fast. I mean, he's fast and he's 15 years old. And that's what he does now. He goes with his grandfather and they go to all these big races. And I think they said he raced 100 races last year. Yeah. All big shows. Yeah. So you can't get better unless you go with people that are better than you are. So that's the way I've always done it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, Christy, best of luck on the remaining races of the shootout, and here up in 2024 again, here up in 2025, and we look forward to following you and all your accomplishments up to this year and in the coming seasons going forward. Thanks for joining the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Is there a way to get it? So my husband?
Yeah. I'll send you a copy of this once we're done. It's on YouTube and a bunch of different places. So I'll get this sent over to you. I'll actually clip your portion right here so you don't have to listen to all the other BS that we've been talking about. But we'll get that over to you. So the rest of the week, because I know that Vado, the shootout's kind of broken out. So when you got Wednesday and then through the weekend, is that what's coming up?
Yeah, Wednesday and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Absolutely. Yeah, really, really cool. All right, my friend. Thank you so much. Thanks for responding to my message. Man, this has been amazing. And I want to tell you this, between you and your husband, especially your husband, you tell him, I'm going to get up tomorrow morning. I'm going to go run 2 miles because my fat ass doesn't want to get out of bed. And I'm not quite that age, but I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better. That is so amazing.
I'll tell him.
You bet.
I'll tell him.
Good luck the rest of the way. And thank you for gracing us with these great conversations that we've had tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Take care.
Okay.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
You bet. There she goes. Man, that's a badass.
I tell you, got to Google it, dude. Google her and the pictures.
I know everything.
I'm saying you did a lot of research prior to what I did.